Pinecone just released what might become the Assistant's API killer. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use it and how it fares against Assistant's API from OpenAI. Now, this is a feature that's in beta, and just today I got off the waitlist, so I was able to just jump in and test it out in exchange to actually give the team feedback if that arises. So this is a feature that's called Pinecone Assistant. And right now it's in beta and they're accepting users off of a rolling waitlist. I got my ticket today, so I jumped right in and tested it out. The main difference between Pinecone's Assistant API and OpenAI's Assistant API is that Pinecone's prioritizes what's called grounded generation, meaning it doesn't just give you an answer that consults its knowledge base, it actually goes and it gives you all the references from where those answers are from. And unlike an Assistant API, you don't have to write any form of system prompt. It just works out of the box, and it just knows that whatever question you ask it has to be sourced from the actual knowledge files you've given it. This is super helpful in terms of mitigating hallucination, which is something that the Assistant's API can do a lot, and it's hard to trace where it went wrong if it does so. Okay, that's enough talking. Let's dive right in and build our first assistant. So when you log into Pinecone now, if you're accepted off the waitlist, you'll see this handy dandy assistant beta in the solutions tab. Once you go here, it'll be a blank screen, and then you can click on create your assistant. And then when you create the assistant, you can just give it a name. So I can say future dash of jobs test, and you can click create. And pretty much all you have to do is just upload a PDF file. You have a limit of 10 files per upload. And typically I found that files between 2 to 10 megabytes seem to work pretty well, and they're pretty quick in terms of processing. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to upload a future of jobs report from the World Economic Forum. I'm going to open it up while it's actually processing so I can show you how big of a file it is. And it's around 10 megabytes. So if I click import here, it's going to start processing, and it's doing something pretty awesome, which is it's doing the chunking, the re-ranking, the embedding, everything behind the scenes without need for user input, meaning you don't have to go through that process where you have to write a bunch of code, decide how to split your information, how to chunk it, which embedding infrastructure to use, which framework to use, and manage the whole vectorization process. It's all done in one step, and because it's in that Pinecone infrastructure, the retrieval is much more grounded than average RAG solutions. Now you'll see here it took around a minute and a bit to actually process the file, and now it's available. But before we do so, if you go into here and we go into future of jobs report, you'll see that the file looks a lot like this. So if we pull this all the way, so it's around 300 pages. It's a pretty thick PDF. There's tons of visuals here, tons of fine print, a lot of percentages, a lot of graphs. So it's a really good example of a complex PDF. Now, what you can do to actually test it out in a demo environment is you can go on chat, and down here you'll be able to ask a question like, if I'm a farmer, will I still have a job in 5 years? And now while it's buffering, it's going through purely the knowledge file that you've uploaded. It's not using external knowledge, but obviously it has an LLM wrapper around it. So once it actually retrieves the answer, it frames it in natural language. Now you'll see something here that's super powerful that the Assistant's API can't do right now. So right here, when it actually gives me the response, it says there's an anticipated increase of around 30% of agricultural equipment operators, and it's referring to the statistic of 3 million jobs in this sector. And it sets the paragraph and the page it's referring to, which is incredible. And then it does so again here and here. And let's say we had more than one knowledge file, we had 10. It would also tell you the references of where that retrieval, which document that's coming from. So you have a full provenance of all these answers and where they're coming from. Now that's how you use it in the demo environment, but it's actually pretty straightforward to use it programmatically as well. So if I open my Google Colab here, all you have to do is do a pip install, upgrade to Pinecone because it's a newer framework, and you do Pinecone plugin assistant, you install that as well. That takes around 50 seconds. And then all you have to do is import this information, and they have it actually in their documentation. So if you go down here to the Assistant API, and you'll see here there's a bunch of objects. One of them is search and chat with your assistant. And if you click on Python, it pretty much gives you the template of what you need to do here. So in our case, all you have to do is put your Pinecone API key. I'll obviously delete this by the end of the video. And then you name your index that you used. So in this case, I just created one called jobs test. So we can take that and we'll paste that here. And then this is just some custom code that I wrote because the actual response, if I run this here, comes out in JSON format. So if I just add one more code block just to show you what that looks like, print response, and I'll just wait for it to finish. So the response looks kind of like this, where you have the actual content in here and you have an actual link to the PDF here. But we don't need all that right now. If we just click on this, I'm just accessing the content portion of it, which is right here. So if we just click on this code here, you'll see as a programmer, you're not in trouble. In fact, the outlook for programming skills is quite positive. Program is considered a core skill by 19% of companies surveyed. And if I scroll through, it says this stat is coming from page 280 of this. So if I go down and I look for page 280, we should be able to see that stat of 19%. So let's go here and let's scroll through. Yeah, it is the programming page, so that worked perfectly. And then there we go, skill importance 19%. So it was actually able to go to the 280th page, and with no external training or prompting from us, it was able to get it perfectly. So already this is a very impressive feature, and it's just in beta, so I can only imagine when it's out of beta what it'll be able to do. Now, if we take this exact same question that I asked it, which was, if I'm a programmer, am I in trouble? And I asked it to the Assistants API using the latest and greatest model, GPT-4 Omni. Let's see what we would get as an answer. So in this case, it gives you a response, which again is in line, but you'll notice it's not rich in terms of statistics. It's not prioritizing the document to actually source those pieces of information. And the most important thing to me is when it references the file, it's just referencing the general PDF. It's not telling me which paragraph is coming from, which page is coming from. So even though the Assistants API might catch up in this regard, the Pinecone Assistant is starting with the most important thing first. Clients and customers primarily prioritize non-hallucination responses rather than ones that sound pretty or sound nice. And if you look at Pinecone's responses, it's a bit dry perhaps, but I imagine in the non-beta version, you might be able to switch which LLM you're using. You might have some influence over how it's responding or the manner in the way it's responding. So I would say this is pretty promising in terms of prioritizing not hallucinating over bells and whistles and function calling, etc., etc. Instead of doing a bunch of things mediocrely, it's doing one thing really well. That's it for this video. I'll keep you posted with any new advancements with the Pinecone Assistant. And if you're looking for the code that I use to actually test it out, you'll find it in the description below. Thanks.